Hello, dear students. Welcome back to the sixth session of Communicative English. I'm Dr. Archana Durgesh from the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, BVD University. And last time, I was discussing on barriers. I told you about the linguistic barriers. I told you about the semantic barriers. Now I'm going to tell you about the cultural barriers. Culture varies from person to person. The other day, I told you that if you want to know about a person, then you must know like his education, his environment, his experiences. Culture even plays a vital role. Culture plays a vital role in defining us and making us what we are. Because everybody comes from a different cultural background. If you talk about interstate, intercity, inter-region, inter-nation, like even countries have different cultures. Um, for your better understanding, I'll share some videos with you. When I'll finish off with my all my sessions, I'll share some links with you. Please go through those links. They are small videos. You must watch them. It really will help you out in understanding what I have been talking about. So now I'll start sharing the notes. The notes have been edited. You can use them as primary source, secondary source. You can even add, you can even remove what you think is too much. But please see to it that you have to stick to it because it has been designed according to the needs of your syllabus. So we'll start. Okay. Now we'll start with cultural barriers. Culture uh, is a kind of pattern of taken for granted assumption about how a given collection of people should think, act, and feel in their daily affairs. Like culture has always been predefined. It has its own set of patterns. You have to follow them. Okay. Culture is all socially transmitted behavior, art, architecture, language, science, symbols, ideas, beliefs, norms, traditions, rituals, etc., which is learned and shared in a particular social group of same nationality, ethnicity, and religion. Like we are from a culture where whenever somebody comes to our house, we welcome them. Because in our culture, we have been taught that Atithi Devo Bhava. That is our culture. You have learned from it. Then you touch somebody's feet, you say pranam, you share like you even say salutations like assalamu alaikum. You even say sat sri akal, hello, good morning. These are all traditions and values that have been transmitted to us, and these are cultural. We belong to a nation which believes in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. That the world is our family. We don't consider we as family, but we consider the whole world as our family. Culture is handed down from one generation to another. It gives people the way of seeing the world and interpreting life. A single culture, we have many subcultures like India has. So many subcultures are there. Everybody is so different. Some people believe in, like, if I talk about wedding is a very, you know, it's something which is of festivity and celebration and jubilation in India. So if you talk about an Indian wedding, if you talk about the Hindu wedding, if you talk about the Muslim wedding, if you talk about the Christian wedding, if you talk about the Parsi wedding, if you talk about Pahari wedding, if you talk about Kashmiri wedding, there's so many types of weddings. If you, according to sociology, if you go, there have been there are so many weddings that you'll be surprised that these weddings actually exist. The Vedic wedding, the Asur wedding, the uh, likable wedding, like Shakuntala and his husband Shantanu had. So these are cultures. This is have been handed down to us from one generation to another. But in sense of communication, it is difficult as the mindset of people of different cultures are different. And so is the language, signs, and symbols. Like for me, swastik and om is very important. Maybe because I follow Hinduism, but maybe I'm Muslim and I like 786 because it is the very important number. I may be a Christian, so I like cross. I may be uh, Sikh, so I may like the Satsiraka, or I can even keep a Kripan with me. Getting so every symbol, every gesture has a different meaning in every culture. The way you communicate is affected by the culture you are brought. The opposite is also true. Culture is to a large extent determined by the way we communicate. It's vice versa. Like the way we communicate actually expresses our brother. The way we deal with people, it shows how we what culture we belong to. When you do something very naughty at home, you are asked, this is what is being taught at the university. And if you do something very naughty in the university, it's asked, this is what you have learned from home. Culture reflects you, and you reflect your culture. Culture reflects you means that because you have been brought up in that environment, so it is there in your behavior. But your behavior reflects your culture. Getting it? So in America, people communicate freely. It's a part of their culture. In Germany, in Indian culture, it is used to be very indirect with this communication. It's not very direct because direct speaking directly is considered rude in Indian culture. Being direct is a part of German culture, and it is reflected in the way they communicate. They're very straightforward. Communication shapes culture, and culture in turn shapes communication. What are the causes of cultural language? Language. So we start with language. Language is one of the basic and most significant barrier of language, cultural language. There are billions of people in the world who do not understand English, who cannot communicate in English properly. Not speaking properly in English can cause various misunderstandings and be a barrier in the community. Different cultures have developed their own language as a part of their heritage. People are comfortable communicating in their own language, whereas however, hard to learn new language. Like for example, if you ask me, then there was when I was in my very early years of my life, I learned Hindi. I picked up Hindi from my household, but there was even a tinge of Punjabi. My mother could easily talk in Marathi because my maternal father was in his grandfather was in army, so they were quite for a long period of time they were in Pune. So she picked up Marathi from there. But because she was Punjabi, she could equally speak in Punjabi. Because she spent a lot of time in North India, especially in Lucknow, so she had a very good Hindi. But when it came to speaking, 90% of the words she used were definitely Urdu. They were never Hindi. She couldn't, she could converse in Hindi, but maximum were Urdu. Unknowingly, you use them. Why? Because we are from culture, from the city of Nawabs. उर्दू तहजीब की भाषा है, जबान है वो तहजीब. So that touch is there because we have been in Lucknow. We have been born and brought up in Lucknow. So that tehzeeb, that we don't talk very straightforward. We use terms and terminologies that are full of respect. That's very common. But by and by, that culture, the color of culture is fading because that culture is not living anymore. It's bygone. New things are coming. English is coming to the fore. The accent is taking place. Accent has taken a lot of, has made a lot of difference. I find people with accents now. They have never been to foreign lands and still they have quite an accent. So that even creates a trouble because people are not able to understand how you're talking and what you are saying. Like Americans, if you watch an American English movie, you won't be able to make out for a certain period of time what they are talking about. Why? Because they speak very fast. You won't be able to pick up. If you look at if you watch a British English movie, say of James, it's a British movie, you will be able to understand their English because they talk at a very normal pace. We have been influenced by the British because we were colonized by them. So our English is somewhat like that of British because our pronunciations are even British. Why? Because we are colonized by them. We have been affected by them and affected by them. Okay. So language, plays a vital role, and so does the accent. Now, if I say, for example, the separation of East and West Germany for 40 years caused a language to differ a lot. The dialect became very different as East Germany had the influence of Russian language, where West Germany had the influence of English. A couple of years back, I tried to learn German. It was really very difficult. But 15 years back, when I tried to I wanted to learn French, it was very easy. With age, even, you face a lot of difficulty. That you are unable to learn a certain language, and then you realize how many barriers the person faces when the person is not able to understand the language. Even when people try to express in their own language, many misunderstandings arise. It is because more profound people speak different languages. For example, if I talk about people, I have acquaintances in Maharashtra, and when they used to call up in 10, 15 years back, they say they used to address me like, Archana, तूने किया नहीं, तेरे से कहा था. I was flabbergasted. And I used to always be very humble and I used to say, Sir, I'm sorry, आप रहने दीजिए, I'll do it. हम कर देंगे sir. One day he asked me, Archana, how many people are there in Ham? Because Ham is a plural. But in my culture, Ham means मैं. Even today, when I call up people and say, हम आ रहे हैं, कह रहे हैं, मतलब, they want to know how many people are coming along with you. हम आ रहे हैं. हम is a plural. But in Lucknow, मैं is considered very rude. I don't know. Even as a person of Lucknow, I feel that मैं is very. तुम is very rude. Who is out of question. Ah, we address people as आप. That is, misunderstandings created because we used to say, because one day he told me that actually you're very formal and it's really very difficult to communicate with you because you're very formal all the time. I said, sir, I'm never formal. I'm just being respectful. And sometimes I find your behavior very rude because you address me as tu and tu. Tu. What is tu? He said, but in Marathi, if you respect somebody, you use tu. And if you are very formal with somebody, then you say ah. But it's that vice versa. If you respect somebody in Lucknow, you use aap. And if you want to demean somebody, you use tum. Tu. That is the difference. So just a matter of you matters. Like in English, you don't have any trouble. If I say, sir, as you say, I am saying out of respect as you say. Over there, I mean aap jaisa kahe. But if I'm talking to you, and if I say, you come here, you, beta, you even come here. So to you, I may mean tum. And if I'm talking to my son, I may say, you are my bestie. You are my life. तो मेरी जिंदगी है. But every you may mean different. Okay. Now we come to the signs and symbols. That is the semantics. Non-verbal communication cannot be relied upon in communication between people from different cultures. As so, because it is different like language, signs, symbols, and gestures vary in different cultures. As I told you, thumbs up sign is taken as a sign of approval and wishing luck in most of the cultures. वहीं पे if you show a thumbs up sign in Bangladesh, it it is a just with a uh, it is taken as an insult in Bangladesh. Similarly, if you make a V for victory, it's a gesture with palm raised outside. It means victory, peace in US. But if in many cultures, if the palm is facing outward, it may show as an insult. I'll share some videos with you. You'll understand it. The culture sets some meanings of silence and the ones mentioned above, which might not be the same in. I told you that if you make an okay sign and fabulous sign with your finger and your thumb touching, it may mean very good, very yummy in non-verbal communication over here in our culture. But in certain cultures, it may be taken as an insult. Stereotypes and prejudices. Stereotype is a process of creating a picture of the whole culture, over generalizing all people belonging to the same culture as having similar characteristics and characterizing people accordingly. It is a belief about a certain group and it's mostly negative. Like if I say stereotyping and prejudices, then sometimes you cannot overgeneralize. You cannot blame a whole community for it. You cannot say ये तो होते ही है ऐसे. This is because of their caste, because this is because of the religion they belong to. You don't talk like that. You cannot stereotype. You cannot put each and everybody in the same pocket. You cannot overgeneralize. You cannot make it very obvious for everybody that everybody is bad. And so many people are so outwardly helpful, so cooperative, so genuine, and so generous, and so respectful. Please don't overgeneralize. This is one of the bad things. It's stereotyping. It's prejudicing. Stereotyping can be done on the basis of many things like nationality, gender, race, religion, ethnicity. There's a very beautiful example I have come across. I've seen people having a son or two sons. I've seen if their son is crying in a marketplace. I've seen women saying, "लड़की की तरह क्यों रो रहे हो?" Why? Girls are meant to cry. Girls don't cry. And what is it that's saying boys don't cry? Why can't boys cry? Boys are very emotional. If you compare the emotional question from the boy and a girl, then you will be flabbergasted. Boys are more emotional than girls. Girls are a bit way bit practical, and boys are very emotional. So you cannot say that boys don't cry. Why? Because they cannot vent out their feelings. Why can't they vent out their feelings? They should vent out. And you should not tell a boy that you are crying like a girl. This is how you demean a gender in front of another gender. And by the way, if you are talking about gender, you must understand that sex is biological. You are born with the sex, but gender is a social construct. You are born a male and a female. But if you are told that you are a man and she is a woman, that is a gender. That is a social construct. And this is an exemplary paradigm and outstanding example of gender construction. That men don't cry, and please don't cry like a girl. You are a boy, don't cry like a girl. So this is stereotype. You should not do that. In ancient, students are stereotyped as good in mathematics. You'll again be surprised. Asian students are very good in mathematics. But in cultural stereotypes, people following a particular religion are being, uh, you know, uh, considered as violent. They are not. They are never violent. You cannot say that people of some religion are violent. You cannot say that. It's it's not good to say. It's not very wise to say. You cannot say. You cannot overgeneralize. You have to be very pertinent while you are talking because your communication defines you. Okay? Then, if I say that even negative stereotyping provokes judgmental attitudes, people look at those cultures and evils and treat people following a religion wickedly. Media is a tool of mass. It promotes stereotyping and prejudice and creates more communication. Sometimes even media creates. You tend to dislike somebody so much, and you hate that person, and on the whole, that community is being hated. This is not a good behavior. Now, the next is behavior and beliefs. Cultural differences causes behavior and personality differences like body language, thinking, communications, manners, norms, which leads to miscommunication. For example, in some cultures, eye contact, as I even told you, is considered rude. But in certain cultures, if you don't maintain eye contact, it's considered disrespect. Culture is a set of specific norms which dictates the behavior as they have guidelines for accepted behavior. It explains what is right and what is wrong. Every action is influenced by culture, like ambitions, careers, interests, values. Beliefs are also another cause of cultural variance. Like a few people believe in something or the other, a certain set of people believe in something or the other. These beliefs even put us apart and create a cultural barrier and communication barrier. For instance, mostly people who believe in God can cope up with their lows of life easily than atheists. Atheists are more hardworking, all at all the time, which relates to their behavior and communication. Appropriate of amount of emotion if you display, it means different. In different cultures, roles are defined by cultures. Like good communication only occurs when people with different culture is both accepting the differences with open minds. Like, for example, every family has their own norms and traditions. Like if two people get married, it is the marriage of two cultures. You may not be following the same practices. There might be some similarities. There might be some dissimilarities. If you talk about leave out marriage, marriage is a very big thing. Talk about friendship. The person you are sitting with on the same bench, sharing the same table, eating from each other's food, they have different cultures. You may like something, you may not like something. But there is a saying, accept me as I am, so that I can learn what I can become. You have to accept these differences and then communicate. And cultural barrier is very important when you come to this thing that it's mine and it's yours. You technically put them as ethnocentrism. It's the process of dividing culture as us and them, hum or wo. What is this? This is ethnocentrism. People of someone's own culture are characterized as liberal and other cultures are out. There is always great reference to the in-group. There is an illusion of out-group as evil and inferior. This evaluation is mostly negative. Like some people say, uh, हमारे यहाँ नहीं होता, उनके यहाँ होता होगा. What is us and them? What are you trying to prove? That you are superior and they are inferior? That you are a positive person and they are negative people? This should not be there. It creates a lot of cultural barriers and communication. Ethnocentrism should not be there. If a culture is similar to us, it is good. But if it is dissimilar, it doesn't mean that it is bad. Other cultures is evaluated and assessed with the standard being of their own culture. Ethnocentrism affects the understanding of message and encourages hostility, dislike, hatred, and you might end up not liking each other because of ethnocentrism, because you have been taught in certain way that you should not accept some people in a certain way. For example, the books in school use reference of their own culture to describe other culture by either showing common things or differences. Like I firmly believe that nobody is superior and nobody is inferior. Please judge a person by their place value, not their face value. Please don't judge a person by his religion, his culture, his caste, his surname, his color, his creed, even the gender. If she's a woman, that doesn't mean that she's not intelligent. If you are a male, that doesn't make you more important by the virtue of the fact that you are being born a male. If you are a male, that doesn't mean that you cannot be wrong. Only woman is a woman can only be wrong. She can only be traumatized. She can even be subjected. Even in certain cases, it has been seen that males are being subjected because she is considered the fairer sex, so sometimes she takes advantage of that. So it depends upon person to person. In communicate, it's the communication which teaches us that we should take person according to their place value and not their face value. Okay? Religion is even somewhat similar to ethnocentrism as stereotype. Religion disrupts communication as it creates specific image of a person who believes in certain things. People find it difficult to talk to people who follow different religions. Religious views influences them. It creates a difference in their opinions. For example, in Pakistan, Christians have to speak up to their rights as the majority of it is Islam and Christians are discriminated, which is also a lack of communication between these religions. Because somebody is a minority, that doesn't mean that you should be subjected. And somebody is uh, in a large number, that does, the majority, that doesn't mean that you can take over the whole thing. Everybody is equal in the eye of the law. Everybody is equal. All brothers and sisters, each and everybody equal. And when you are communicating, you have to see that these differences don't are psychological barriers. Psychological barriers depends upon the mental condition of both parties. Like I told you before, the mental state of the sender and the receiver both. A mentally disturbed party can hinder communication. There are certain emotional barriers that come in our way of communication. Premature evaluation, a very wonderful example, in fact, a very wonderful pillar, very important barrier in communication, I must say, that's premature evaluation. Please don't jump to conclusions. Years back when there was this the Twin Towers caught fire because the aeroplane collided. It was a terrorist attack in the US. The building was collapsing when somebody from 72nd floor or 86th floor jumped from the window. The title to that, the caption to that pic was "Desperate Plunge." Can you imagine? Somebody will jump from 86th or 72nd floor, or will stay alive. But that person, he wanted to escape the excruciating pain of dying with burning, like with fire. He didn't want to feel that excruciating pain, but he broke all his bones. He was smashed on the floor. Can you imagine somebody falling from that height? Can that person be saved? That's a terrible thing. But that person took a desperate plunge. And that is what premature evaluation is all about. You take a desperate plunge. You judge somebody with your prejudice, with your preconceived notion, and you hear to people's dictum about them. Because somebody told you something about somebody, that doesn't mean that you might even experience the same thing about it. It may be because of the in mutual dislike that he expressed his views. But you take it, and that is a premature evaluation. Without judging somebody, you must not share or unshare communication. Lack of attention. When the receiver is preoccupied with some important, like for example, if an employee is talking to his boss, the latter is busy in some important conversation. That's a psychological hurdle in communication. Like suppose I'm teaching you something, I'm lecturing you in class, and some people come and stand out stand out in the outside lecture hall, but I don't give attention to them. I'm totally engrossed in teaching. That's a kind of lack of attention comes in because I'm teaching and they are trying to say something. Then will they get my proper attention? They will not. Loss of transmission and poor. What happens is when a message is received by a person after it's passed through many people, generally it loses some of its truth. The other day I was telling you about gossip. People add some flavors and spices according to their wish and fancies. So this is what happens when a transmission of message is made. And sometimes due to poor attention, or sometimes even people add some spices according and give a turn and twist and twirl according to their vision fancy. The communication loses some sense. This is called loss by translation. This happens normally in case of oral communication. Poor retention of the information means that with the next transfer of information, the actual form or truth of the information changes. Like for example, there is a communication value which is taught, which is known as information overload. It sometimes happens if I give you too much of information. Like if I take 4 lectures at a stretch, will you remember what I've taught you in the first? Maybe. Second, a bit of it. Third, quite a bit. Fourth, you won't remember. Because by the time you're totally saturated and tired, and another kind of physical barrier has taken over. So poor attention even happens when there is so much of information load that after a certain period of time, the person simply forgets that what was being said and what was being. Now, according to one estimate, with each transfer of oral communication, the loss of information amounts to nearly 50%. This happens because of the carelessness of the people. Therefore, lack of transmission of information in its true exact form becomes a hindrance in communication. Like for example, if I'm told about 7 things to do and 7 steps, in 7 steps I'm supposed to do something and I'm not that techno savvy, will I be able to do justice to the work? Will I be able to remember what has been said earlier? I may skip a step or two. It happens because you cannot retain such amount of information. It's a huge amount of information to be retained, and sometimes you cannot retain that. For example, if I say um, in a packet, in okay, we take a bottle. I ask you to get a Pepsi bottle of 500. Now I tell you to get me to empty that bottle and get me 1 liter of water in that bottle. Will you be able to get that? The bottle has a capacity of holding 500 ml only, and 1 liter is equal to 1000 ml. Will it be able to hold? No. That is the capacity of our mind. If I've told you certain things in 7 steps, you might remember 5. But that is where written communication comes in handy. You can write all those 7 steps. It can help you in future even. This is what note taking is all about. What do you do when a teacher is teaching in the class? You enjoy the lecture. You really want to listen to it. You try and grasp each and everything out of it. Every drop of it you gather, and then you keep it in your mind. But then there's something or the other that you feel like writing. You keep a rough copy open and you start writing. Even when I give handouts to the students, and when I teach in the class, I'm on roaming mode. When I'm talking and walking, I see students have written in the margins on the other side of the sheet. And what are they? They're examples. And if I ask them, why have you written this silly example? They say, ma'am, in this way we remember. This way, we can recall and retain the information. Sometimes I forget the definition, but I remember your example. The moment I remember your example, I'm able to understand the definition and the concept. Communication has to be made simple. It should not be made complex. Like I said earlier, it should not be like an Illuminati thing that nobody is able to crack. Only few can crack, so that only they become the member of the Illuminati, the member of the intellectuals. Communication is meant for all, and it should be very simple. The more simple it is, the more understandable it is, and that is the beauty of communication. Then it's distrust. It's another kind of psychological barrier. For successful communication, the transmitter and receiver must trust each other. If there is a lack of trust between them, the receiver will always derive opposite meaning from the message. Because of this, communication will become meaningless. Like if if you don't trust them, then will you be able to uh, feel comfortable around you. No, you won't. If I tell you something, if I'm explaining you something, and you feel that I'm not trustworthy, if I'm not intellectual according to your standards, will you be able to perceive? Will you be able to gather what I'm saying? Like, uh, for example, notes. We'll talk day to day life. Notes is a kind of credibility factor. It's a matter of trust. You don't refer to any book and you stick to my notes. That shows your trust. But if you refer to many different things, it's good. You must have. You must add on. Like we take a very normal example. I buy vegetables, but there's one vendor who comes to my door and he rings my bell. And if I find him that he is there, then I buy vegetables. Otherwise, I don't because I trust him. I trust his decision. I have seen that whenever he gives me the vegetables, they are very good. And if somebody else gives me, one or the other thing goes waste. That's the trust element. In such small things like 20, 30 rupees worth stuff, we give so much value to trust. Why do we go to our family jewelers? For 3 generations, 4 generations, my people have been buying jewelry from them. Why? Because I trust them. I feel that their goal is genuine enough. Family doctors. What is this? This is trust element. There is an element of trust. You trust him. That is why you often go to him with your problems, with your ailments, because you trust him. So psychological barrier is only that. It is not something else or out of the box or out of the world. It is there in your mind. It is there in your psyche. If you trust somebody, then you will always communicate with them completely with open mind, and you will be a good receptor. But if you don't trust somebody, then you won't be able to communicate with them as a sender or as a receiver because you feel that there is some kind of thing going on in the back, and you might be betrayed. You might end up losing something or the other. Okay, so I think you must have understood the barriers in language and psychological and cultural barriers. Today I told you about barriers. I told you about the beauty of communication. I told you about the barriers one can face.